60 millimeter or a 60-inch ruler, so I was just trying to get the size of everything. I knew how big I wanted them to be, but I didn't have it totally nailed down at this point. But a lot of the stuff I do with props and armor and things like that, I'll get pictures from either the artwork or, in the case of the robots, the toys themselves, take pictures of it and just blow it up in Photoshop until I get it to the size where I want it to be, and it gives me a really good starting point. Okay? Here you can see I'm still using the little wings as kind of the basis, but I'm cutting out patterns in paper, just trying to see how I want to do these feathers. At this point, I was still thinking I would have each feather be 4 parts. You can see how on the side, on the bottom there, it's 2 different pieces of paper, because I wanted the feathers to be 3-dimensional. I didn't want them just to be flat. But then it was going to be a lot of work hiding all those seams on every feather on 2 different sides. So I had to try to come up with a different way to get the 3-dimensional look I was going for. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Here you can see the feathers with foam backer rod in the middle. We got one of those right here. If anyone wants to come sit up in the front so you can get hands-on with the materials too, that's great. So anyone wants to see any of this. But the feather is, each feather is filled with this in the middle, foam backer rod, like insulation rod. So you can see that it gives like a ridge to the feather the whole way through. And the foam backer rod, you get, I think I got about 50 feet of it on Amazon for like $14, which is probably more than enough for a smaller set of wings than these. Do you guys want to see any of these parts? You want to keep any of this too. Everything that I don't go home with is one of those things I got to pack. All right. But the glue I used to attach the wings was a Zap-A-Gap glue, which is usually used for like model kits and things like that. But on foam, it kind of melts the top layer of the foam a little bit, so it gets a really solid, good connection. Hot glue can come apart and can look a little bit messy, whereas you can see on these, all the edges are very smooth. There's no rough edge from glue or anything like that. Okay, go ahead and move along. And here you can see I'm starting to build up piles of feathers, especially for these wings in the back. All these different feathers, all built up that same way, just patterned out on paper, cut out 2 different sides, and put a foam backer rod down the middle to give it that bulging 3-dimensional effect. Okay. You can see here the darker foam. The darker foam is the more standard type of EVA foam you guys may have encountered in doing costume. It's the anti-fatigue matte foam. This is just 2 shapes cut out, glued together to give it some weight. It's the back portion of the sub-wings back here. This one was a little too rough, that's why I didn't end up using it.
Can we ask a question?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
What glue do you prefer to glue EVA foam?
For gluing EVA foam, if I'm doing like this, making a solid piece, I like to use the super glue.
Okay.
If I'm doing like connections, like when I'm actually bonding the larger pieces together, I like to use the hot glue.
Okay.
The only thing is I find that the hot glue, well, I'm normally doing costumes in Florida, the heat's a lot higher. I find that the glue starts to come apart. So I've been using the super glue more and more, but the super glue doesn't flex very well here, you know what I mean? So, especially for something like this, because I wanted these wings especially to be soft, because with the size of them, I knew they were going to bump into people, they were going to get knocked around, and I wanted to make sure that they didn't hurt anyone or get hurt themselves. And you can see as well, there's like a white material around the different areas of the darker foam. That's silicone sealer, like the kind you would get in the home improvement store, like a caulk. Because you'll notice with foam, it has a lot of pock marks and air bubbles in it from the process where they make it. And That's fine from a distance, but up close it looks really ugly and you gotta use something to seal it up. Now one of the things I'm gonna show you guys too is we have the heat gun here. You can use that to get rid of some of the smaller pock marks, like when you hit it with the heat gun, it'll seal it up. But for the deeper stuff, you'll need either like a Mod Podge, or in this case, I was using the silicone. Silicone, this is the first time I used it. It works really well, but it doesn't have a lot of working time. You have to pretty much finish what you were doing within like 5 minutes. So you only work with like a dime-sized bit at a time. With something this big, it's really time-consuming to do it, especially with these larger weights. Okay. And here you can see I've taken those paper patterns and I've gone ahead and copied them over to the foam. The foam comes in various thicknesses. The most common one you're going to find is 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch for the anti-fatigue mats. The 1/2 inch is usually sold in packs of 4 interlocking panels. You can find them at Harbor Freight. Walmart sells them. Harbor Freight, you can usually get a good deal on them too if you have one nearby, because they'll run sales every other week and you can get 4 sheets for $10. The interlocking plates weren't going to work for this project though because they were just too big. So I was able to get the 1/4 inch in a large roll of like a yoga mat. 1/4 inch is thinner, so kind of had to do some other stuff to make the shape stronger. You see in the back, you see these long thin strips? And behind all that is a coat hanger with just hot glue on it, and that helps it hold its shape. You can see a little bit of it here. But especially around the top to help it hold that curve. This is all metal behind it to help it hold that shape. Okay. Here's one of the smaller portions of the sub-wings. This is after it's been sealed with the silicone. And then I went ahead and painted over that with Plasti-Dip. Plasti-Dip's a spray-on rubber coating. A lot of people use it for the rims on tires, or rims on the wheels of their cars, or for like steps on boats and things like that. But it's also really popular as a sealer for craft foam because it's kind of dual purpose. If the pock marks you have aren't really extreme, it'll hide a lot of them, and it also seals your foam and lets you do paint, so you can go straight to paint. You can't paint on straight foam because it'll just act like a sponge. It'll just soak the paint and it'll look really ugly. You have to seal it somehow first. Okay? Now here I've added the first layer of the craft foam wings. The larger part on the bottom is the 1/4 inch EVA foam stacked on top of each other, and then the rings of feathers around them are the actual craft foam itself. The craft foam is the exact same type of material as EVA, it's just much thinner. Then you can get an example, I'll pass that around. This is the 1/4 inch EVA foam, and then the craft foam itself. The craft foam you can get at places like Joann's, Michael's, but also for the size of this project I needed much bigger pieces, so I had to go on Amazon and get the giant rolls. But you can get them, just if you got to get the giant ones, it seems like they're harder to get. I had to get mine from all over the country on Amazon. But the outside edge of these wings, it's really just kind of like folded over. There's a channel in the middle with the thicker foam that all the other feathers were going to connect to. So if you see this wing here, I don't want to move this, I don't know if anyone wants to come over here and see, but this is like a pocket, and all these feathers go up inside and then glue into the center. So this is like a hollow shell that's holding more feathers. Okay? And you can see here now I've started inserting all the individual feathers, and the size of it's starting to build up. Now you see the gray shadowing I've put on this? That was just done with acrylic paint and an airbrush. Just some light gray, I went ahead and airbrushed all along the edges. Craft foam itself will hold the paint just fine because it's so thin, you don't really have to worry about it. It will kind of rub off if you really go at it, but it's fine on its own. For the larger foam pieces, because those are Plasti-Dip sealed, at the end I just hit it with a clear coat of the Plasti-Dip, and it holds the paint really well. So you can airbrush onto the craft foam and everything like that, and it'll hold everything just fine. Okay. Ignore my anime den. It doubles as my workshop. Also, I'm kind of a fan of the classic stuff, so wall scrolls. But here I've started doing the rigging for it out of PVC pipe, just trying to get an idea for the size of this. At this point, I've started to think, oh my God, what have I done? Because these are just the smaller ones, and it's got to be really big. But on here, you can see the PVC pipe actually runs up into the wing itself to hold it. Because it's not that the weight's very high, the weight of the wing is actually pretty low, but it's moving so far away from your center of mass that it starts to get unwieldy. So there's a lot of pipe in there to hold it together just in case anything goes. And once that rigging is complete, that's all covered in foam as well. You can see it here. All the pipe is underneath this. Hang on one moment. It's just foam layered around the pipe to make it look like a metallic or metal joint. And you can turn all those joints so you can arrange the wing in whatever way you want it to. To make the bar around the pipe, took some 1/4-inch foam and I ran it over a sanding belt to get an edged angle, you see there? So that you could take two pieces, put them together to make like a square. And then that was just slid over the bars to hide the PVC pipe. Now the only thing is if you're going to sand EVA foam, you can't really do it by hand very effectively because the foam will just move with you. So you have to use some kind of power tool, be it a belt sander, Dremel, or something like that. But that creates a bit of a problem because the dust made when you sand EVA foam is very, very toxic. If it gets into your lungs, you can get really sick. So you have to have some kind of protection. I was talking about these yesterday at one of my panels, if anyone was there. Don't get the cheap dust masks. Get one of these with the dual cam respirator and change them every other couple of months. And if you're working in an enclosed space, I work all my work out of an apartment. The dust will get into your carpet and things like that, and then you'll breathe it in later. So what I did is I made like kind of a spray booth setup with exhaust fans to go out, and then I have a shop vac hooked up to my tools that collects all the dust. So you want to make sure if you're working in enclosed spaces, you take measures to make sure that stuff doesn't end up in your lungs. Okay. Now here's a little trick that, in a way, my girlfriend introduced me to. When you hit EVA foam with heat, you can kind of shape it. But you got to kind of press it over a round object. And I got one of these, and she's kind of a labyrinth nut. Like every girl in that age group, everyone loves that movie. But you can heat up the EVA foam and press it over a round surface, either a bowl, a sphere, or like a bedpost or anything like that, and you can kind of round out the foam. You can see there all those pieces of foam. This is the 1/2 inch. Were cut out, shaped, then heated up with the heat gun and pressed over this sphere. And that let them hold their shape really well. And I was able to get the rounded 3-dimensional shape I needed for the larger wings. Okay. And here's a few of those different pieces bonded together. This piece I didn't actually end up using because I did the measurements wrong. It wasn't carving the right way. But you can see how you can attach different pieces to start to get a more organic look once you've got it rounded. If you guys want, I'm going to get this heat gun working, and you guys can come up here and try out some of this material and see some of the tricks you can do with it. Anyone want to come up here and try this? Anyone? So what I've got up here is I've got a heat gun. This is a multi-temp one. You can control the temperature on the back. It's got two settings, high and low. So, just going to wash your hands. I'll show you a little bit first. Got a piece of foam here. I've already cut a channel in the back so the piece can bend the way I need it. But now I want it to bend like this and hold its shape. Go ahead. Nice and even hot. It's kind of like a hair dryer on steroids. You can kind of see too the color of the foam changes slightly. It gets a little sparkly. That's the top layer contracting and sealing up some of those pores. So now that that's done, after the first pass, now we've got a shape that's much more curved and flowing. And when I bend that now and glue it, now I can have a piece go, like say, to the top of my wings over there. So I'll go ahead and give you a piece and you can go back and show. Just pull the trigger out for the hot setting. Don't actually hit your hand. Nope. But this same process works with larger stuff, not just wings. You could do this with like Halo or Mass Effect armor, or if you were making like a blade for a sword, you can curve it this way. Yeah, see? Bends really easy. And that'll hold that shape, short of you hitting it with more heat. If you were to put hot glue and stuff in the back to help it hold that bend, it'll keep that shape. Does anyone else want to try any of this? All right. Well, you saw what he was doing with the heat gun. You can also do some other little tricks. You'll see in my wings I have lots of like rounded details or like lines in them. The heat you can kind of use to expand as well as contract details. So if I wanted to do like a rivet or a bolt in armor, I find a really good trick to do is you take the case of a ballpoint pen and you just take the end and you cut it off. You'll go ahead and take your foam and just turn it into this. Just turn it with your fingers into it. And then you get a little rivet mark. When you hit that with heat, it brings up the detail again, so it's even. And then if you plasti dip on top of that, you get a nice little indented detail that you just put on without having to do anything. If you guys have done Gundam kits, you have a lot of panel lines to show like segmented armor. You can do that in foam too. Just when you have a piece, just put a light cut mark in it. So here I just have a tiny little line, hard to see it. Hit that with heat, and you're going to see that line's going to expand open. Now the detail's a lot more visible. The heat kind of forces the gap open. And it's still one piece, so it's still nice and solid. Can't see the slide. All right. And now you can see here I've taken all these parts, I've started to round out, and now I'm starting to glue them on to the large flat piece. And it's a lot of different circles and shapes that were just bent and put into position. And I'm still at this point copying the design of the wings from this little figure here. Okay. Now I've got the main section of the wing covered in the white plasti dip, and I'm starting to plan out how all these feathers are going to attach and how they're going to interact with one another. Okay. You can see here I've started to do some of the weathering on the large section of the wing, and some of the feathers are starting to get attached on. And now we're mounting them up, seeing how well I can move around with about 15 pounds of foam hanging off me in every direction. Right. Now, I also mentioned that I use the craft foam for things like weapons and stuff. After I did the wings, I had to come up with a way to counterbalance them because I had all that weight behind me, and I was going to be on stilts. So figured I could take the rifles that the suit uses and maybe set those up to be used like canes. So the first thing I did is I took a picture of the little toy's rifle, and I blew it up to about a 60-inch image, printed that across a few different sheets of regular printer paper, taped it together, and was going to lay it out on cardboard to see if I could copy it over to foam in 3-dimensional. The other rifle you see there is one I made previously out of Sintra. I just had it there for scale to get an idea for things. I knew how big the handle had to be based on that, so I could just compare them, and then I knew the size was accurate for my hands. Okay. Now here you can see the barrel of the rifle is the PVC pipe, and then the layered foam around it. Just the foam shape was cut out 3 or 4 times, glued together, with a channel in the middle layer cut out for the pipe, and then placed around the foam. Now the pipe coming out for the handle runs through the barrel as well, because they have to be able to support my weight if I was to fall. Okay. And you can see here the basic shape of them has been built up, and you can see the different colors because on top of it, to add extra detail and 3-dimensional effect, I added the 1mm craft foam, which is that green and blue and the white foam. That's all just super glued on. And it looks really weird now because it's all different colors, but once you plasti dip it on the next slide, you end up with a really nice looking weapon, which was this here. But same way the wings were weathered, just acrylic paint and an airbrush. You guys want to take a look? Still pretty lightweight, but those pipes on their own are pretty much strong enough to withstand my weight and to kind of work as canes in such a tall costume.
Are the orange tubes the same wing filter?
Yep. The red tubes on there are the same foam backer rod, just covered in red plasti dip. So all these different parts, like, it all moves around. All of it's soft. You can't really mess with any of it. If you want, pull the rifles apart. Go ahead, just pull. There you go. Now, those are rare earth magnets at multiple points. And there's one up there as well, so that these can be used individually. And these are on straps, and they just flip up to close the sights. Now you can see too where your wrist is. There's a strap that goes deep into the foam.
Yes.
And that connects to my forearm because these things are so long. They're not very heavy, but because, like I said, the center of weight is so far from you, if you're trying to hold it out straight, the gun just droops. So you strap it around your wrist to hold it upright so that you don't look like you're being really lazy and tired with your guns. But it's true.
The line that you got, there's no line to the pin or anything I saw?
No, the magnets are doing all the alignment. It's just carefully measured and put together. And you'll see too, the lights in the scopes, those are just T lights behind some colored green acrylic. Yeah, I was really happy with the way it came out. I'm going to be doing more guns like this because this was a lot of fun. And the other great thing too is, oh, I want to drop it. It's fine. Foam is really hard to damage. So that's the other great thing about it. I like it because there's really no way to mess with it. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for the rest of the stuff. All right, let's go ahead and move on. So here you can see now I have the finished rifle compared to some of the wings, and I'm just trying to get an idea for the size of everything still at this point. Because at this point it's getting to the point where it's like, I'm almost done. I have no space to wear this all at one time. I have no idea if it's gonna work. Okay. And that's pretty much it for the how-to and the process for how I did the wings. If you guys are interested in seeing more of my work or more of the in-progress pictures or video, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on YouTube. You guys can copy that information down and check me out. But I think after this, it's time for me to suit up. All right.
Yeah, we're ready. Go to it.
Oh, it's not too heavy. It's pretty evenly distributed.
Is there any more questions on the wings? Or
Any more questions before I go for it?
You mentioned you made the gun to be a cane so you wouldn't fall. Have you?
Yes. Only, well, twice. One time I didn't fall completely.
I caught you.
Yeah. One time, it was actually at Cosplay America last year. I was in my Gundam Mark II costume. I was outside doing some video. It's actually part of the video that got playing on the screens out there. But I took a wrong step and I hit like a rock or something and it kind of crushed one side of the foot. But funny story after that is Goldie was a guest that year, who's like my cosplay senpai, the guy that got me into doing cosplay. Used to watch his videos on YouTube and dream about doing this stuff one day. I'm in the room, getting cleaned up afterwards, and Goldie shows up and does a quick repair on my foot. So that was pretty great. So, and he did a really good job repairing that too. I haven't really fixed it since. Huh? Yeah, he did. He did it really quick. The other time I fell was I was doing a contest at a bar, which was probably a bad idea. But
One of these?
in one of these, because I thought, why not? I'll take a stab at it. Oh, geez, I don't want to relive that memory. But that was the big red guy you see in the picture there. So he got really messed up. Over the course of a few weeks, though, I put him back together and rebuilt him. And he's still sitting there menacingly in my living room, glaring down at me. But yeah, he's fully repaired now. But yeah, but that one I was using wooden platforms. I hadn't really got into doing stilts yet. So that one, he's got really pointed feet, and it was on a cobblestone floor. And one of his feet got into the cobblestone and it went right down like a pile, like a ton of bricks, into the bushes. And a bar full of drunken partygoers is not a sympathetic audience. So, kicking you when you're down. All right.
Any other questions on foam, building with wings or guns or anything?
Yeah, if you guys want to see any materials or just grab a piece so you can mess around with it, be my guest. One last thing I have to pack.
Could you pass me the bottle of Zap? Yeah, if I take a picture of it? Sure.
The Zap glue itself, I don't have a label on it.
Okay.
The brand is the same as this.
Yes, question.
Accelerate.
Is there like a rig inside of the chest piece there to hold it up?
Yes, there is. It's kind of basic though because all the weight is in the back. All the weight is in the back. The front is very thin. It's just holding the batteries for the lights and speakers and things. So there's fiberglass in the back that all the wing mountings and the shoulders bolt into, but the front itself is very light. The only other thing is those panels. All right, anything else before we start getting suited up? All right, what time is it?
Also, I'm gonna start suiting him up as well. Do you guys have any questions in regards to how I suit him up or pointing to parts and wanting to know more about it? Just let us know and we'll explain it further. Okay. Also, if you have any questions that comes up during the weekend, we're around. You can't miss them.
It's okay, cosplay, big break, yep.
I was hoping not to make everyone watch me playing with toys this weekend. It's supposed to be the gun panel later. Alright, close enough. One more. Sure.
How do you do stilts?
The stilts are drywall stilts, like the kind you use when you're hanging drywall. And you'll get to see a better look at them when I take the leg armor and round it off when I put these on. Got our shirt off.
Throw it in the trash.
I'll be quiet.
I'm sorry, just noticed your shirt, it's awesome. I don't want to say anything, but your shirt is awesome.
Thank you.
As long as everyone here is not instinct, we're all cool.
Final last, what's the plug?
Oh, that's going to be for controlling the sound. The speakers are in the chest, and the actual control is in my hand. So. This is kind of, yesterday I kept on putting it through this arm instead, and I was like, oh, where's the controller? On the other side. All right, so.
And at some point, we may need some assistance, so just kind of work it.
Totally.
All right, so first thing to do, this is the skirt rigging. The skirt rigging is all made from wooden dowels, fiberglass together, with Velcro straps to hold the various armor pieces in. Like this is not attached any other way other than Velcro, and it's all just attached to that rigging. But most of the armor parts, like the thighs and the chest, are resting on this, so that's why it has fiberglass reinforcing on it. It has to be a bit robust. Had it on the wrong side.
A lot of it is like strapping from stuff you can pick up, like at Joanne, Michael's, Amazon, here.
Yeah, whenever you have a chance, go to Amazon for the stuff with the strapping. You can buy it in bulk. I usually get like a couple big rolls of the Velcro just by itself, because I'm going through maybe one or two of those per costume. You can see here, the lower legs on this costume are all foam because they had to be able to get around the stilt. I couldn't like have something on and then put the stilt on around because of all the strap. So that's why this is like a soft material, and that part's the hard stuff.
You did a good job painting it, making it look the same.
Yeah, because it's hard to get the finish the same. And these pieces clip on, so it hides the toe. Take that off for now. So you have to see the stilt.
foot on there, straps go on the side, and the actual toe itself is hinged. So when you take a step, you can take a proper step. These hold about 250 pounds, and these are just drywall stilts. There are better ones you can get called like Durastilts, which are more springy. The steps a little more even. But this was the first time I was getting them. I didn't want to spring for that. So I was confident it was what I needed. So if I do this again in the future, I'll be probably buying a better set of stilts. And you can see inside the leg all this green upholstery foam. That's just to keep the leg from moving and to keep it in the right position. The foam is on this side, more on these legs, because it has to go around the bar on one side. So this is to keep it out from my ankle. Make sure the leg stays straight. She's going ahead and doing the foot straps first. Now, because I'm not super confident in the stilts yet, like I'm confident I'm not going to fall, and for my own mental security, I usually take a bunch of duct tape and tape my legs into these too, just to be extra safe. I trust the stilts, I'm not so sure about the straps sometimes.
Anyone else want to help?
Calls you cat.
Trust fall, trust fall. Yeah, I got balls out of the streets. It's like a spring on his head, he's good to go.
Yeah. It's very durable.
That better be a Team Valor count.
Would you like a
Okay, good.
Would you like a giant Team Valor stand? We're doing color coding.
Why?
Like we could wrap like 4 of them together and put it around your mattress.
Yeah, we picked different teams. Yeah, we're sitting there glaring at each other over the dinner table. We're just like, oh, these are not instant. Go Valor, go Misty, go Banana. I know the game's been out for a while, but it still has a bunch of glitches. I keep encountering this one where Jim turns yellow for like a brief moment, and then it immediately goes back to blue or red. I can't figure out why it happens. Yeah, save it for now. Stickers on the line. Alright, so pretty much other late, I'm getting duct taped into this costume because I'm not a huge fan of stilts still. I'm getting there. So this, yeah, we did the wing panel a little bit early because it would have been difficult for me to talk about things and show people examples if I was already in the costume. Go ahead and pop it in the ring. So you can see now too, I have that toe motion, stilts move around.
go out back.
Yeah.
You stole my legs. You stole my legs.
She's gonna go ahead in the back and put together all Velcro straps holding this guy together.
The back and the legs, just adhesive Velcro strip.
Just adhesive Velcro strips. It doesn't look the best, it's not my favorite part of the costume, but I couldn't come up with a better way to get it sealed. Because the big part was, how do I get it around the leg and be able to do all the straps at once? The first version I had was a solid plastic piece, and I fought for like an hour trying to get it on around still, cutting the leg a different way. And it was just like, if I can't do this in an hour, it's gonna be impossible for somebody else trying to put it on me. So we ended up going with the foam instead. Yeah, it's a lot more forgiving. But I do need to get into doing more foam as a complete build, especially because I want to do some suits that do like martial arts and fighting and stuff like that. And the solid, heavy material will look good, but it's not ideal for fast movement. You guys are here for the wing panel. I kind of had to rearrange to do that first because I wouldn't be able to do the panel inside the suit. But I'm still willing to answer questions. I have tons of materials and examples up here if you want to get a look at the wings themselves. Thigh pieces are built the same way as the lower legs. It's just foam covered in plasti dip and then painted. A little strap here that goes up into the thigh. These are all one piece. And there's a clasp here that it connects into, so these don't slide down my leg.
Okay, they came on skirt.
Yep. Yep, right there. Okay. The other side.
This part of a handler, you want someone that's might get up close and personal with you.
Look, there ain't nothing back there no one wants to see. And the other good use for the foam stuff on costumes like this is you can move around and the parts are soft. So you don't have to worry about the pieces smacking together or breaking like that.
Have you weighed the whole suit? See?
I can't find a scale that fits it.
Okay.
But I'm going to, I had to guess, I'd say probably around 50 pounds. No, not really. Charlie, before you put that on, grab the joint there and put that on. Alright, just need to stay close to me. down south, in Florida, the Murakami, like a Japanese museum.
Okay.
And they did a day where it was all about giant robots and how it's influenced Japanese culture and anime and things like that. And they had me on stage and been standing there doing that, and then kids would come up and go wave to them, pick their hand, everything. Everyone thought I was a real robot. That was great.
Which suit were you in when you did that?
I was in the Mark II, the one upstairs on the main. That one's a lot smaller and more mobile, but this one's a lot more visually striking. Can you hold my hand? She's pretty fast. Probably dangerous. In plastic, the plastic itself is actually not that expensive. I did a big 4x8 sheet for like $30. This has like 10 inches, about 8 of them, maybe less. So it wasn't too many of them. And a lot of the electronics, like the speakers, batteries, I already had from previous costumes. If I had to bet the number on it, probably under 1,000. All things I've done. But then you work like things like came into it, it might be more than that. Probably would make me sad.
And then you figure how many man hours?
Yeah, then you gotta figure working, you're not like aging with your times where you start sitting up there real. Biceps here are all out of foam as well. There's a piece of poultry foam there to hold it in place against my arm, and then there's the elastic strap to hold it in place. The foam on the outside is kind of keep the bicep flared out because the robots tend to have really wide shoulders, and it's kind of get a little bit of a wider shoulder ability to really have. In some of my other costumes, the biceps were completely hollow, and they were just hanging from the shoulders, and I could kind of shrug out of them if I needed more space. But they would get knocked around, and this way I find mobility is not quite as good, but a little bit better. And if I ever have the option of going for better looks than mobility, oh, we're already almost done. You can see too, the poultry foam. One side is higher up, and so I have a pearl on one side. So this one's for this side here. All right.
You didn't have to go all day.
I was avoiding the shoving all this food at me.
Do the forearms just stay up with the posting?
Yeah, they're not strapped in or anything like that. It's just tension on my arm. The Zentai suit makes it a little easier because the foam is less likely to slide in the strap than it is like your own skin. And we do some mechanics gloves. And it makes some fingers out of foam. The top piece here, that's hard plastic. The switch is an iPod now. So when I'm holding the rifle, I get to kind of do this. They control the music. People can't see where the controller is.
That's better than last place, isn't it?
Yeah, in the first costume I had sound with, my hands were full because I had the giant camera weapon, so I'm like, how do I control the sound? So I had this iPod right in front of my nose, and I was so, I've come a long way, I hope, maybe. Like everyone's, how do you control the sound? I was like, Bluetooth.
Very carefully.
It's so simple.
If you don't have to be overly complicated, why?
Yeah. If I not ready to start it yet. Come on in. Why don't people watching you get dressed?
Isn't that just the life though?
It's not all.
Hashtag cosplay problems.
You can see now, this is just strapped in my arm. This one's gonna help me walk around.
At what point in this build did you try and figure out how to transport?
No, it's pretty much, this stuff is like, I had to rent a van or something, which is what I did for this trip. I came from Florida, Palm Beach, like Fort Lauderdale. So we rented a caravan, loaded everything up, and took a 12-hour drive to get up here. But with the 2 suits in that van, even with that big van, it just barely fit everything. My next costume, I'm doing the ground tech Gundam from 8th MS team. And that one I'm designing to be able to break down easier, hopefully to either put it on a crate and ship it ahead of me, or to ship it alongside me on a plane for when I have to do longer distance travel. But that one's much smaller suit than this. But I'm designing other parts to be able to collapse and fold down, and shoulders breaking through cases and fold flat, things like that. Little rifles on, and you can see now how I'm trying to use these to help me walk around if I need to. And I can walk around and just kind of hold them in front of me too, because they help counterbalance the wings.
Speaking of,
Yeah, speaking of, you should probably do those outside after we get through the door. No, you good. We'll put on those outside.
but they want questions, so that's fine.
Yeah, because that's pretty much it for the suit. I got to see how this happens. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Are you able to sit down at all?
Yes, I can.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really surprising.
Very tall chair.
No. Got it?
Yeah, but-
Top squad. Oh, wow. I have a lot of Warhammer 40K cosplayers and none of them can sit down.
Yeah, it's not the most comfortable because I'm sitting on the back of the chair, but when you need to catch your breath, you take what you can get.
We did like small chairs, trash cans.
Maybe like a bar stool, like a folding stool.
We did it at a wrestling ring once. I was like perched on the end of a wrestling ring at a soda show in South Florida. So yeah, whatever works. But normally it's just, suck it up.
Yes, hashtag cosplay problems.
Yeah, it's like the saying about cosplay, if it's comfortable, you're not doing it right. You gotta try harder. It's gotta be uncomfortable. All right, so we're gonna put the helmet and the wings on outside.
Does anyone have any questions? I don't know what time it is.
Check this out. We have the costume back there.
Yeah, 11. We got an hour.
You got an hour?
We're supposed to be here for an hour.
So we'll chill out there, and we'll talk to people, and show off the wings, manage people with rifles, and all that good stuff.
Mine's bigger than yours.
Yeah, pretty much.
Not compensated at all.
I'm watching it, I'm watching. These cute bits of foam he tosses in that box over there with the hat. Anyone have any other questions about giant costumes, I guess? I'm sure everyone's got questions about costumes this weekend. Which guy?
You said you didn't like the Velcro straps on the back of the legs, or the way it looks.
Yeah, as you can kind of see, there's like a line.
Did you think about maybe using clips instead?
I thought about it, but then I thought, like, if I stress it, it might tear.
Or
Because the foam, like I said, would just probably tear out. What I've done, like on previous suits where I have the waist foam, is I have like a panel in the back that fit over it. But that was like a smaller area. On a piece that big, I thought it would look bad. So it's kind of the sacrifice I had to make. I was just like, let's get the front looking good and the back of the legs looks bad. Just kind of have to deal with it. But hopefully I can come up with a better idea for it in the future because I'm probably going to be doing more foam stuff for full builds in the future.
Does anyone else have questions about the suit up, the wings that we kind of did earlier?
Yeah, we kind of had to do the wings earlier because I wouldn't have been able to talk and show people things if I was fully in the suit.
Questions? No? Okay. Then thank you all for coming, of course.
We're going to step outside if you guys want to get a photo or anything like that.
All right, let's take it outside.
Yeah.
Take it outside.